Welcome, world, to Life, Love, and Wellness Global, a worldwide wellness movement. I am Reverend Sandy Rogers, and as the creator of this historic event, it is my pleasure to welcome you. We come together to bring you this historic event. We have practitioners, holistic practitioners, we have medical doctors, we have spiritual individuals. This event is so lovingly dedicated to my mother, Mrs. Barbara Dean Brown. And my mother taught me like 40 plus years ago about the importance and the meaning behind herbs. And she would always say, we don't know what they putting in those pills, so you better not, get hooked on prescription drugs. And so we listened to Mom, but not all of us paid attention. My sister, bless her heart, was diagnosed recently thereafter with asthma, and she was prescribed prednisone, which is a very powerful steroid. And my sister actually got hooked on steroids, like someone out on the street kind of hooked, like on heroin or crack or something like that. And so my mom and my sister are both on the other side, living in the other dimension, but they're upholding me, and this is dedicated to their memory. So we don't want to come and make you change your mind about what you're doing. We just want to provide information to you, something different, so that you have options to choose from, so that you're not stuck. Because the environment that we now live in, the fast foods, the toxins in the air that we breathe and in the water that we drink, and the processed foods, and all of that is causing havoc on this precious body temple. So God created our bodies to heal themselves, but they can only heal themselves when they're fed and they're nourished and they're stress-free. And so the 60 or so or more experts that we have are bringing you this worldwide wellness movement in an attempt to share their testimonies and their information with you. So we have from age 14 on up. I don't even know what the oldest age is. I think 88 or something. So you see, that's a wide range of knowledge that we're bringing you. And so we hope that you come and that you get all the knowledge that you need to affect a positive change on your life, and share this with others. It's free, it's online, and so we're just so thankful that you decided to be a part of our listening community, the viewing community, and we certainly appreciate you for giving us your time of day and your energy and your efforts to being with us and to being a part of this historic event. We have pulled together people of color for you, by you, right? So we want to make sure that you understand that we too, melanated people with color, can enjoy, practice, and participate in some of these modalities that others have been doing for centuries, and that is pretty new to our community. So we talk about Qigong, we talk about meditation, yoga, spiritual work from a different perspective than religion. So we talk about the spirituality aspect. We talk about abuse in the families. We talk about all kinds of subjects because we know that in our communities there are layers and layers and layers and layers of stuff that we never talk about that's causing a negative effect on our bodies and its healing process. So we address it, whatever it is, and we hope that you will benefit from the many experts that we have, and that you walk away with lots of knowledge and lots of new information, and that you become fully empowered to share information with others. So thank you for being with us. We love you and we bless you, and we look forward to doing this again. But thanks for being here with the first one. We appreciate you.
Love and wellness. Life, love and wellness.
I'd be happy to. Let me begin by just saying thank you for this opportunity, for this platform. I'm really honored and deeply touched to have been asked to participate. So, I am Muhjah Shakir. Some people call me Dr. Shakir, and more fondly, I'm also known as Mama Muhjah. Um, Yes, we are here at Nature's Garden for Victory and Peace, which is kind of a live work environment. I live here in the home, but I also use my space as a workshop. We host all kinds of activities here, which I'm sure I'll be saying a little bit more about it. But just by way of introduction, I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, and I went and lived there until I was about 30. Although my parents, my mother and father, were both from Alabama, and it's really interesting how I ended up living here because it had not been in my cards, so to speak, until much later on. But as I said before, I grew up in Detroit, which was a really big city, majority black city, during the years that I lived there. And then in the early 2000s, I moved to Oakland, Berkeley, they call it the San Francisco Bay Area, where I lived and worked for 20 years. And then a part of what happened for me, I am the type of person that likes to have different and new experiences. I enjoy traveling and whatnot. So my visit to California, I actually thought was going to be a short visit. I mean, not a short visit. I mean, I knew that I had moved there, but I did not know that I'd end up staying there for 20 years. I ended up getting married, having my second daughter, and opening up a business, which was at that time called the Urban Village International Boutique and Community Center, and doing lots of political work to free political prisoners. I devoted about 10 years of my life to freeing Geronimo Pratt, who was released from 27 years of incarceration in around 1996, 1997. But the way that I ended up being in Alabama, being the type of person that I am that like to have new experiences, I was taking a course at the California Institute of Integral Studies, and one of the professors gave us an assignment to envision where we wanted to be in 5 years and what we wanted to be doing. And at that time, they didn't really call it a vision board, but essentially that's what I ended up creating, a vision board. I just thought of it as a collage. And I made the intentions to move to the Southeast, to buy land, and to build an institution. That was one aspect of what my vision board included. And I want you all to know that within 5 years of having worked on that vision board, I found myself accepting a teaching position at Tuskegee University as an occupational therapist, teaching occupational therapy. And I worked there for 16 years until I just recently retired. Now, during the 14 years that I had lived here, I found that I got caught up in just everyday life. You know, the life of just living, going to work, and doing whatever else I was doing. And then finally, sort of something came back over me, and I began to refocus myself on this vision that I had had. Okay, so I had manifested the fact that I was in the Southeast, even though when I thought about where in the Southeast I wanted to go, Alabama was kind of like number 5 on my list. And after having lived in the Bay Area, I was more drawn to what I thought would have been like a coastal area. But what happened was that I saw an ad in a professional journal, and Tuskegee University was looking for a professor to teach occupational therapy. So I called, and all the doors opened instantly. I even had a friend of mine who is a Babulao to do a reading on it, And he said, Muhjah, it's a really good reading. It's a very strong reading. He said that if I got a reading like this, I would follow it. And he said that the ancestors had called me here. So with that good reading, and my own desire to move, I decided to come. So that's how I landed here. And as I was saying, that for at least 15 of those years, 14 or 15 of those years, I didn't continue to pursue the fullness of what I had envisioned, but I had managed to get into the Southeast. And then I began to tell people in the area that I was looking to buy a home and some land. And there's a wonderful lady that doesn't live too far from here, and I refer to her as my angel, because I just told her, I said, I'm looking for, I want to buy some property. And I told her I was looking for a house and some land. And she said, well, I know of two places. And she took me to one place and she brought me to this place. And I fell in love. She said, I think that place has 15 acres of land. And I was so ecstatic. The house was really in bad shape. It needed a lot of fixing up. But when I finally came to the land and then investigated like who was selling it, it turned out to have 57 acres of land. And not only that, but a pond. And she never mentioned the pond. And I call it a pond because I'm from Detroit, where we have the Great Lakes. And so it's hard for me to refer to it as a lake. But technically, they say that anything that's over, I think, an acre or over the size of a football field or something is considered a lake. But it's a decent size, and it has fish in it. And it's a man-made lake, but it's clear that it's being fed by underground water. And the two people who built this house, a husband and wife, they were both veterans. And I understand now from all of the local people that, he passed away. He was a pond builder. He was also an engineer in the armed services. And he clearly built the pond where there was underground water. So there are fish in the pond, and we don't have to feed them, or do anything. So it's a really nice ecosystem there. So that was very empowering because it taught me the lesson of manifestation. And even after I did the closing on the property, I would come here and I'd go down to the water and I would pour libations and I would pray, and I put all of myself into this desire that I wanted to acquire this property. And I was able to acquire it. And it was definitely a great blessing. The cost factors were really, really good, unbelievably good. One of my daughters said, when she came to see the place, she said, this is depressing. Because she couldn't see what I could see, But we made a lot of sacrifices. We were only really able to live in 3 of the rooms. The room that we're sitting in and 2 other rooms. The kitchen needed to be completely gutted. The living room, the dining room, and there are like 4 other rooms on that side of the property. None of them were habitable. And so each year we just did a little bit and a little bit. And so now we're almost done. There's only 1 bathroom that still needs to be done and then a back porch. But we have turned this space into, I would say, almost like a community center. And it's interesting because I found that I was doing the same thing and I didn't even think about it. But it's an example of if you follow what you like and you go towards the things that you feel naturally drawn to, you begin to see that there's a pattern in what you're doing. Even sometimes I study things, I'll pick up a course here or there, and I had a friend of mine say, well, why are you taking that? But it's just like I'm drawn to it. And so that was another lesson. So the idea of, putting your mind, body, and spirit into a quest, into a passion, into an idea that you have. And if you really want it, you can bring these things. And these are spiritual principles that are evident throughout the universe, the power of manifestation. So that was really empowering and very affirming for me to have been able to manifest this land. And that because the whole experience was such a godsend, I decided that I wanted to put 25 acres, which is almost half of the property, into a community land trust. This so, this is also a way of honoring what has been given to me, to now turn around and give it and to share with other brothers and sisters who are interested in building this holistic, intentional, transformative learning community. And so it's a holistic vision. And we're using the arts as the primary tool. And when we say the arts, we define the arts as any human activity or occupation that, when performed with mindful imagination, beauty, and social responsibility, as an art. So that means that it's bigger and broader than the performing arts or the visual arts or the things that we classically think of as being art. So it includes those things, but it can include any human activity, any occupation, as long as it's performed with mindful imagination, which is creativity, thoughtfulness, beauty. In other words, you want to create the best possible product. You want it to be aesthetically pleasing, and social responsibility. We don't want to get overly involved with capitalistic models or fast money or things that we know aren't sustainable. So that's our definition of art. And so that opens the door really for any person who has a great idea, whether it's the healing arts, visual performing arts, farming, because we got 57 acres here. We're called Nature's Garden for Victory and Peace. Yes, a physical garden as well as a metaphorical garden. That everything that we do, including our relationships with each other, our relationships with the broader community, should always be caring and healing. So it opens the door for people to participate on many different levels. Now, to take this concept of building a community a little bit further, and it took a while to really conceptualize this, a couple of years of just kind of stewing in it and thinking about it over and over and over again with others. We came to the realization that we wanted to create a community of people who are of similar mindset. Not exactly, because you're never going to find people who think exactly the same. We're always going to be individuals with individual perspectives. And so that means that we have to be in dialogue with each other. That means that we have to study together and have discussions so that we can begin to understand each other's perspectives in different languages that we might speak. So it seemed to us that it would be easier to build a community of like-minded people who all share some kind of spiritual practice. It's non-denominational. We don't care what your particular affiliation is, as long as it is something that is designed to help you to reach your highest manifestation of yourself. But that we would like to be together on some regular occasions, that we might pray together, or we might meditate together, or we might we would share something as a community in the way of a spiritual practice, but that people would be free to have their own homes, their own quarters, and to establish their own businesses, but that there would be this unity and a supportive environment of giving and receiving and for the collective good. And so that from this community, we could then provide services to the broader community. The broader community would then visit the community here for festivals, for example. We offer 2 festivals a year. We intend to create an academy that would be somewhat akin to a post-secondary school, where we could begin to train others in some of the different modalities that we have expertise in, and people could complete these programs with a accredited certificate. But that we would also have short courses too, speaker series. So the whole idea is to uplift ourselves, uplift the community through education, through spiritual practice, through the food that we eat, through the fun that we have. And so that's the basic idea of Nature's Garden for Victory and Peace, which is also named after our beloved, I like to think of him as the second, well, maybe not the second, but a 21st century or 20th century multi-genius, George Washington Carver, who wrote a bulletin in 1942. He used to publish bulletins that were disseminated throughout the county for the farmers. And he wrote this particular bulletin, was bulletin number 43 in 1942, and it was called Nature's Garden for Victory and Peace. And I love the name. When I visited the museum that's on the campus of Tuskegee University, I saw that bulletin. And I said, when I get ready to move towards building this institution, I want that name. And it resonated with me so profoundly because of nature. A lot of what we're doing is learning from nature. Living in a rural area like this, there's so much that you can observe. I mean, wherever you live, you can observe it, but you can really observe it when there are fewer people, less houses, a lot less industries, less cars and whatnot. And there's so many different types of bugs that I had never seen, different types of trees and flowers. And so through the observation of nature, you learn a lot about the nature within oneself. And we have a collective group. There's a good friend of ours, and I think Akiba and her husband Kareem. They have been working and developing this concept called nature culture. And so I've actually adopted that from them, and we're working together to continue to have nature culture become a publication. They have written an introduction, and they want to do that in a participatory manner, where there would be a group of thinkers that would read through the document and add to it and really flesh it out, so that it is something that uniquely is reflective of our mindset. In some ways it might be similar to permaculture, but we want, one of the things that we think is important as people of ancient ancestry, being the first people on the planet, we think that it's important that we reclaim our own intellectual property. And so even in the construction of homes and a lot of the trendy things that are available, people talk about these I think they're called earth ships. They're like houses that really in some ways are kind of built into maybe like a small hill. But it really is like a hut concept, in the way that it's shaped. And so that we believe that it's important, again, even in that example, to give credit where credit is due, because we are a people that so much of our contribution has been either stolen, negated, and not credited to us. So that's part of what we have to do, is to reclaim. And when we do that, we're actually giving people who don't know a healing. It's healing to tell the truth. to tell the historical truth about everything, you know. So the nature culture is a very important aspect of the development of nature's garden for victory and peace, because it serves as like a philosophy, really, it attempts to define who we are in relationship to the cosmos, the heavens, and the cycles of the earth and the seasons and everything above as below. So, Nature's Garden for Victory and Peace wants to work with people who are passionate about their peace, and if it fits into the definition that I had given of art, and if this person wants to be a part of a collective mind, we're striving to develop divine unity. Just think about that. Not just unity, but divine unity, and that's going to be a great effort, It's going to require that we pull on everything that's good about us, that we will have challenges, we will have struggles, but that we will always come back to each other, because we have to. We have to, and so, and then when we're successful in doing this, because we will be successful, I sometimes I laugh and I always say to people, no more divorces, It's like new enterprises, new initiatives is like a marriage, and it's like, okay, we want to do this thing, and if we decide that we're going to do it and we're going to do it together, we're in it. It's a commitment. It's a commitment. And we have to figure out how we reconcile any differences that may arise. We figure out the natural, healthy way to resolve that in a way that allows us to continue on our path, and that this is the way to do that. So we're still just about 3 years in, and I feel very proud in what we have accomplished, and what we're still wanting to achieve. It's a personal journey that allows you to really grow a lot, and to really pay attention to your own process. And this is another really critical, I think, pillar, that is more about shaping your own development. And that the more that we are able to do that, the easier it is to connect with other people. It's not so much about pointing the finger at others or pointing out, that if we can get everybody involved in a process of self-reflection, contemplation, and then self-correction, there's this Gary Zukov. I think he wrote a book called Spiritual Partnerships, and so that we develop these relationships with individuals where we actually give each other permission to give us feedback, but that feedback is offered in a certain type of way that allows you to hear it and to begin to shift, in various ways. So there's so much, there's so much that we don't know, but we also know that everything that we need to know is inside of us, and so that's another one of the beautiful things about this process is, attempting to access this ancient wisdom that we have, and really like falling in love with your people again, and so I feel very, very lucky to be a part of a larger community of brothers and sisters that are moving in this direction, and I think that we realize that we're in a special era and a special time, I mean, even, I think even so-called modern science is also acknowledging that there are shifts that are occurring. Most of the biblical and sacred books also acknowledge that we're in the end of a certain era, and so to be a part of that is very motivating and very exciting, and it gives you a kind of knowingness that we don't have to be as anxious as one might be when we look around and see the kinds of things that are taking place politically, spiritually, and in a lot of ways, our people seem to, in certain instances, appear to be imploding, under the under the authority of this system that we live in, and my observation is that the answers lie in us coming back home to who we are at the deepest possible level, and that this discovery is such a beautiful awakening, that once you get onto the path, it's like you're full of joy, and it's a knowing that just keeps you moving. Keep putting one foot in front of the other one, knowing that there's something on the other side of it. It's a quieting acceptance, and at the same time, there's this feeling of, we don't have all day. So it's kind of the flip side of the same coin, which is a principle in life itself, that the moment you think you got it, you realize that there's more. There's still more and always more, and it's infinite, but I'm having a good time, I'm having a really, really good time. And I've noticed that a lot of what I'm doing now are things that I started doing when I was in my 20s, like when I was graduating from high school in the early 70s, the late 60s. And it was during that time of kind of like the Black consciousness period, and I was right there with it. I joined the Nation of Islam. I was in the nation for 10 years, and I learned a lot of things about who the original people are. I learned about, caring for my body, how to eat to live, how to fast, how to work with the sisters, and something about, the roles that men and women might play. Okay, so now, one of the things that I learned, one of the big principles that I learned in that movement was that religion was to teach us self-government, and when I thought about that, I said, yeah, because it has its doctrines, it has its rules, and it provides a lot of guidance about, what to do, what not to do. But that once you feel like you've attained that self-governance, you become free, So I reached that point where I needed to be freer, but I still noticed that even within that freedom, that I still was able to make decisions about how I wanted to project myself. And so, I still wear lots of long dresses, loose fitting clothing, I've been wearing scarves, both around my neck, on my shoulders, sometimes on my head, since, like I said, since the late 60s and 70s, never stopped, but then now to see it becoming more, just more trendy. And I still fast, I don't always do the Ramadan fast, even though I think it's a very good thing because people do it in unison with a community. I tend to fast now at the change of the seasons. I do the seasonal fast, And it's a great way to cleanse. It's a great way to also help regulate your weight, to get you back on track, you know. Because even though I am a vegetarian, I guess I'm a pescatarian, but I'm eating very little fish these days because even the fish isn't clean either, you know, so you have to be very careful of that. And I enjoy cooking. Um, I'm really interested in developing a full-fledged herbal garden, and maybe one or two specialty products. Um, and being able to package some of those things and to be able to offer it to the community. Because one of the things I've noticed is that we have a history of having been great cooks, you know, and and we know lots of people who are still great cooks. I consider myself to be not maybe a great cook, but a good cook. But we do know people in our community that are great cooks. But largely, I guess because of the hustle and the bustle and the time constrictions and all this fast food, we're just not seeing our people taking the time to really prepare wholesome meals. You know, sometimes they're dealing with a lot of packaged food or food that comes out of the freezers or even out of cans, you know, and so it's like all of this has to be retaught, you know. So the quality of the food that we eat has a direct relationship to our health, you know. So does the water, the quality of the water that we drink. And then all of these things become problematic because we live in a system that, you know, capitalizes, you know, so that now we're drinking, it's not good to drink water out of plastic bottles, you know. We don't want to drink the water from the tap, but then, you know, it's almost like you have to go out of our way to find the best quality of food and drinks, you know. But that's something that we should do. And as a collective, we can come together and we can begin to create food co-ops, you know, and we're fortunate that we have somebody that doesn't live too far from here in a neighboring town. It's only like 15 miles away. And he found great water, and he's actually pumping it out, and he's gotten it all approved. The quality, you know, it's a nice pH, I think it's above 7.5, you know, pH, and you can taste the water and see that it's a much higher grade. So there's just so many things that we can do, but once we begin to really change first our mindset and open ourselves to these new and more wonderful ways of doing what we do, people will immediately start to feel the benefit and get onto this path of falling in love with oneself and then with each other.
Thank you, Muhjah. You have just been incredible. You laid it all out for us from the inception or the thought to the actions that you took as far as going into prayer and meditation, being in a one-on-one conversation with God, and then having a reading by one of your spiritual advisors and just walking through that whole process. And so you helped us to see and to understand what it is that we need in order to create a community that benefits and honors us. So thank you so much.
Thank you for letting me share that story.
Yes.
Every time I hear my own self share the story, it's almost as though I discover new aspects of the story. So it's a healing process.
Yes, yes.
Thank you
And
so
your
much.
property, your land, the energy that's here, it's incredible. It's incredible. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you. And I want to thank you again, too, for coming out during our second annual Spring Healing Arts Festival. And this will be an annual event. And people are still talking about it. And we were so happy that at the second annual we were able to attract as many people as we did. And we know that it's going to be something that will help our beloved members of the community who have not yet fully embraced some of the ideas that you are talking about in terms of wellness, sustainability, Very, very important work. And so, thank you.